Hi everybody, and welcome back to Look Back Reviews. This time we're looking back on a game I got for free with PS Plus back in February of 2015. Transistor was a game I played for a few hours, but then got distracted by Infamous First Light. I remember thinking that I really liked this game, but just never got around to playing it. I also remember that whenever I looked at what games to delete to make room for games like Final Fantasy 15, Fallout 4 and The Witcher 3, I always thought, don't delete that game, I need to play it. Well, some years on, I'm happy to hear that it's now on Switch for around £15, giving more people a chance to pick it up and play it. With that said, let's take a closer look and see if this game is something that's still worth playing today. Transistor came out on the 20th of May 2014, developed by a company called SuperGiant Games. You've probably heard of these guys, as they made heavily praised games like Bastion a few years earlier in 2011. I've played Bastion on my PS Vita, but I never really got hooked on it. It felt like a good game, so maybe it's something I'll go back to one day. Transistor was a spiritual successor to Bastion in a few ways, playing in a 2.5D perspective, having a strong focus on a story you were just sort of dropped into, and having a focus on gameplay and game mechanics. I felt like this game didn't really get talked about a lot when it did come out. It's strange because I've heard a lot of good things about Bastion. I've also heard a lot of good things about Pyre, another game Supergiant released that was later in 2017. But I feel like nobody's ever really talked about Transistor. The game itself isn't very long, but it feels like a lot of detail went into building up the in-game world and making it feel like a techno indie film with a good amount of substance. And that's a game type I just haven't really played a lot of, indie. I think it was a great introduction to these types of games. Indie meaning a game made by a smaller studio, compared to the likes of Ubisoft or Sony. It hasn't had millions of pounds, dollars or euros put into it, but it's a game I feel champions the phrase quality, not quantity. The game follows Red, a singer who's had her voice stolen from her, and a big glowing sword called the Transistor. The Transistor knows Red and helps to fill us in on in-game lore and information on the various characters we meet throughout the game. We follow them both on a journey to find out what happened the night Red's voice was stolen, and more information on the people that stole it. It sounds like a weak premise to go on, but it really does deliver on it. As we go on, the game takes some wild turns, but makes an effort to be something you can learn more about if you're willing to listen to everything being said before moving on to the next screen and cutting that dialogue short. You can also look through your abilities you've picked up throughout the game, as they have in-game story attached to them. The game does happily just let you go through the stages as quickly as you can. There's not many cutscenes breaking up that pace, so if you're not big on story, or playing this game through again on New Game Plus, it helps to keep the game flowing with minimal interruptions. Out of the small cutscenes they do have, however, I really like them. I think they managed to do a lot with just some good voiceovers and some basic visuals, proving you don't need a big budget to make an impactful story. I'm someone who loves a good story in a video game. I'm pretty happy saying it that it was good enough to make me want to progress through to the next screen. I was happy looking through my abilities to find extra information on the lore, and I get excited when picking another one up just to get the chance to learn more about the in-game world. The game's narrative overall is quite small, but it's compact and it's full of substance. I would say that you won't get the full picture unless you do play through the full game, but I think it's definitely worth doing so. The gameplay in this game was brilliant. The game would effectively give you the tools to conquer any enemy, but not tell you how to beat them, and that's why I loved it. It was up to me to figure out the best way to defeat an enemy and find the best combinations I could to get through to the next checkpoint. Let me explain what I mean. The combat happens in real time, but you have the ability to stop time, move around and plan your attacks. When the time is stopped, you've got a timeline at the top of your screen, and it gets shorter when you move or select an attack. Once you've planned out your turn, you know what you want to do, you can press the R2 button and the actions play out. If you still have some enemies on screen when your turn ends, it's their turn to come after you. You have to run away and stay out of danger until your energy comes back and you can stop time again. You can attack outside of this time stop, but with the enemies running around the screen, it's much more difficult, and it's not what the game encourages you to do. During the game, you'll pick up a load of new weapon upgrades and attacks, from grenades to cloaking to the ability to convert and call on enemy units for help. You can only equip 4 of these at a time, but this is where it gets interesting. Each attack slot at the start of the game has an extra slot unlocked, allowing you to have additional effects to that attack. This means you can have a sword slash and combine it with the cloaking ability, allowing you to do extra damage if attacking from behind, with an extra benefit of allowing you to go invisible for a short while if you destroy the enemy with that attack. Or you can combine the bounce ability to the grenades, so once a grenade explodes, smaller clusters will bounce from enemy to enemy doing extra damage. Each upgrade and attack will take up so many points, but you can't equip more points than you currently have available, forcing you to make the decision of what to equip. After a battle you'll gain experience. Gain enough experience and you'll level up. With a level up you have the choice of a few different options. You can either get 1 to 3 different things. I'm not sure if this was dependent on just your level, or if just some specific level ups have the option to unlock more things. It was fun to see what I could unlock though, from new attacks to permanently upgrading my points, allowing me to equip more upgrades and weapons at a time. It's with these mechanics which take this game from just a cool experience to a really fun strategy RPG. I can't tell you the amount of time I spent just looking for all the cool combinations, swapping them around until I found something really badass or just something that looks so insane I had to try it. What I really liked about this is you can customise your attacks to your kind of playstyle. If you want it to be quick and silent, you have the ability to do this. If you want to hide and just convert enemies to your side, meaning they do all the hard work for you, you can. One of my favourite combinations was to spawn a grenade in front of me, then sword slice it towards an enemy, causing massive damage. I had other abilities equipped to do things like make my attack take up less stamina and my turn recharge faster, allowing me to hit hard and wait a short amount of time before attacking again. I really enjoyed the freedom the combat system allowed me to have. The enemies you come up against will challenge you, meaning that some weapon combinations are better than others, but the game doesn't tell you what they are. You have to think, if I combine this skill with this skill, it should kill that enemy quicker. Or if one enemy is really strong, I could convert it to my side, have it kill the rest of the enemies on screen, and then I can finish that one off at the end. The game gives you the tools you need, but it makes you solve the puzzle. Which means that when you find the solution to the problem, it may not be the same solution I found, making you feel like you really did do the hard work, and you defeated the challenge in your own way. You don't have the ability to change your attacks up anywhere. There are these special blocks at checkpoints that you can approach, and they allow you to change your attacks up, and they also refill your health. These are around often enough, so that even if the attacks you've created aren't very effective at the time, you won't be stuck with them for too long, and if you do die, you'll respawn at one, allowing you to change them up if you feel that you've made a mistake. Every attack combination though does have its purpose, its benefits and its drawbacks. It's just finding the right time and the right place to use them. You can also find these doorways into an oasis area throughout the game. You unlock some challenges in there, and once complete, they allow you to unlock music tracks from the game. You can listen to them in the oasis area whenever you want. It also has a test area where you can try all the current weapon combinations you have at the time, until your heart's content. Transistor in a way reminds me of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You do always have the tools available to you to accomplish the task in front of you, but the game doesn't baby you or give you the answers in any way. It's just like, hey, here's some enemies, you figure it out. I'm off to get a beer. The presentation in this game is amazing. I think what I like about it most is just how much is done with so little. Let's look at the graphics. Are they at the scale of Red Dead Redemption 2 or The Witcher 3? No, but do they look and feel like they fit the game's futuristic and dark atmosphere? That's a big old yeah. The game portrays its tone with dark deserted areas and disjointed music. The dialogue we hear between Red and the Sword make you feel small and alone, adrift from everybody else in the city. The transitions when entering these small terminals you find throughout the game always start with a happy little jingle.
Wish it was raining. Cover your tracks.
But they slowly sound more downbeat and broken as the game goes on. They make you feel like something is going wrong and it's affecting these terminals. Something you can't see. Something bigger. And that's a really good way of making this small game feel like it's part of this massive world, without actually having to be there. New music tracks are a little thin, but due to the game's short length, that didn't get old for me. And they do really capture that lonely atmosphere when outside of battle, and do a good job of picking up the pace when you're in combat. There are a few songs with full lyrics sang by the voice actor of the main character, and they're really good songs in their own right. They do the game's overall sound real justice. The sound effects during combat felt heavy and impactful. I really liked the sound the robots made when they were moving around as well, as some of them were really threatening, but others were a little derpy and made me laugh. The voice actors pull the story and world together, it's acted beautifully. Again, it's their ability to polish and perfect what they can do that makes it work so well. When the game starts, I was immediately hooked and felt like I understood the game's overall tone and what it was trying to say, with the dialogue between Red and her sword. It's not overdone, and it's not done too often, making you pay attention when they do decide to speak. They made me care about their relationship, and like in any good game, that made me want to find out more about them. The game is a linear game, just get from point A to point B. There's little to no backtracking, which in a game that's not too long helps it from getting stale and repetitive. There's only a few areas you do revisit, one being the Oasis and the other being the first screen of the game. Because of this, all the challenge of getting around is just in the combat. There's nothing else stopping you making progress. You could argue that because of this, there's very little variety, but the extra missions you unlock in the Oasis were fun challenges to come back to and help to break up the main game. These missions were still based on destroying all the enemies there, but there were fun twists like killing all enemies in a single turn, kill all enemies within a time limit, or just survive until the time runs out. They would give you a small restricted list of attacks and upgrades to use, and slowly allow you to use more after each round. Some challenges had 1 to 8 rounds, whereas the survive to the end would just have one long round. They encourage you to use combinations you might not have tried before and push you to mix things up. I really enjoyed this. I felt like I'd learned a lot about the weapons and attacks by playing this way than if I'd just been given the option to pick my own attacks that I'd been using throughout the main game. The enemies in this game were not stupid. If you try to get in the face of a long range enemy, they would run away and get some distance and attack you from far away. The enemies that like to get up in your face made you play more defensively, making you find a way to outmaneuver them or outsmart them. It was a good but small list of enemies you had to go up against. They all had their own strengths and weaknesses. The game again wouldn't shout out though how to defeat them. It was a bit of trial and error, but it was enjoyable and didn't feel unfair. It was like every battle was a mini puzzle, but you got a great feeling of accomplishment at the end. The characters feel deep and meaningful, although they don't have a lot of screen time throughout the game. A large part of the story has already been written and played out by the time you start, so the journey of finding out what happened to everyone was really interesting. We get some in-depth descriptions of most of them in their attacks menu, so whenever I wanted to move things around, I'd give them a read. I kept checking in to see what else I could find out whenever I reached a new checkpoint. It's funny, as although we never meet some of these characters, they clearly had a big impact on the world we play in, and as more and more data entries were unlocked, we hear more about them in cutscenes and conversations, and your opinions can change on them. I can follow these characters and see the changes they go through, and yet they had more of an impact on me than games that are 4 times as long and have a bucket load of cutscenes and endless dialogue. They get to the point, but they do it elegantly. They give you a complete story arc with most of the characters you interact with, and in the end, I was pretty satisfied with the journey. The biggest payoff for me though was for Red. It started off slow. It felt like Red was playing catch up as the game presents the rest of the characters and their storylines first, while just dropping subtle hints about her as we go. The ending felt like an amazing payoff. I felt like I was hit by a train, but in a good way. I felt like I finally understood what she'd done and why. Smaller details I picked up throughout the game suddenly made sense. And the fact I had to press the button at the end to complete her story, my decision to press that felt impactful. It felt like it really mattered. The reason it sneaks up on you is that you don't hear Red speak throughout the game. You see her respond to some online posts, and she uses that as a way to speak between her and her sword. She does it a handful of times, but because all the talking is done by her sword, you don't fully understand Red until the last few moments of the game. You never get to see how she's feeling, what she thinks about it, what she thinks about what's happening. She just puts her head down and does what needs to be done. And at the end, she gets her long sought after reward. It's something that will probably stay with me for the rest of my life. It hit me that hard. To summarise, I think this game does everything you want a good game to do. It's well paced, the combat is interesting, engaging, challenging and fun. The music and presentation fit the game's tone and actively make it a better experience. The story is something that's interesting enough to keep you going throughout the game without getting in the way of that fun gameplay, and it gives you a meaningful and satisfying end. It's not perfect though. Although the game's presentation is good, it did become very samey as the game went on. The music was good, but it didn't blow me away, apart from 2 or 3 tracks we hear at the start and end of the game. It would have been nice to see some different areas of the city as well, like some bigger forest areas, maybe a big garden, or just some docks. Just something to make me feel like the whole thing doesn't take place in a small area of the city. The combat mechanics were amazing, but I would have loved to see a visual demonstration of what each attack does, rather than just me reading it when I'm creating a new one. Sometimes you put something together that sounded amazing, but it just didn't work the way you wanted it to, and then you were stuck with it until either you died or reached another checkpoint. Also, in the Oasis, there's a room where you can test out all of your current weapons and upgrades, but you couldn't save them when you left. It meant that you had to try to remember what you want to make, but sometimes when you leave the Oasis, there isn't a checkpoint nearby. The images on some of the attacks and upgrades do look very similar, and I would have difficulty remembering what I'd put together before leaving the Oasis. As you can tell, these are tiny issues with the game overall though. But hey, if I'm going to complain about it, I have to offer some solutions to what I think could help improve it. Normally at this point, I'd put a score up, but it's something I want to do different from now on. I don't think it's fair just to give a game a score out of 10, as I'll most likely give games that I like a higher score than others without considering what other players, and you guys, may want from the games. Instead, I'm going to show a list, like the one below, giving you some bullet points of what I think are pros and cons to the game. I hope it means you can make a more informed decision on this game, and if you think it's worth playing. I think it was a truly brilliant game, and it's something I would recommend you at least give a go. I can guarantee that after a little while, those game mechanics will have you hooked. Hi everybody, and thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you can leave a like on the video, that would be hugely appreciated. You can find the reviews and other content on this channel, and on BazMan 1991, you'll be able to find the streams from Twitch with the various games that I play. Please do consider subscribing to both YouTube channels and the Twitch channel if it does appeal to you. I'll leave all the links in the doobly-doo below. But once again, thank you just so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.